Hello and welcome back to your Pennsylvania Dutch Minute. We got another viewer request video here. This one, I went about things a little differently with this one. A couple of weeks ago, I got an email from a guy asking about a video on traditional Pennsylvania Dutch remedies. There are an endless number of old wives' tales, remedies, these types of using herbs or plants or uh, it's unbelievable. And the Pennsylvania Dutch seem to have such a rich history of these types of things, and we're still doing them 300 years later. So, in order to tackle this video, I went about it by going back out to the people and asking for their own experiences. There's a popular group on Facebook called "I'm Pennsylvania Dutch and Proud." If you're on Facebook and you aren't a member of that group, I would highly recommend you join. There's a lot of good discussion that takes place there, day in and day out, all having to do with Pennsylvania Dutch. And if you notice on the screenshot here, there's over 10,000 members. So I put out the question, hey, making this video, what do you guys have as far as memories of home remedies or old family remedies? And the response was crazy. There were over 75, 80 comments posted. So what I did was I went through that list, and a lot of them were repeats. So it's, these are the ones that I'm sharing are ones that multiple people said that they did. And these are also traditional ones that I've heard before. I have to admit, my family, even though we were farmers, we weren't necessarily, I don't remember my mom being really big into using herbs and so forth for medical ailments. I'm not saying that we probably maybe we did some of them and I wasn't even thinking about it. My grandparents really didn't push it either much. But that's just my experience. That doesn't mean I've heard of many of these and have read about them on multiple occasions, and I've talked to people that swear by them. And that seems to be the thing, that if you were raised with these, you believe them. And a lot of people will say no, it absolutely works. To the outsider, of course, or someone that only uses quote unquote modern medicine when they're sick or have an issue. Yeah, these do seem a little out there. For us, of course, being raised in the culture, and it's just part of our culture, we don't find it that odd. But to an outsider, of course, some of these would be a little crazy. But let's just jump into some of them. Again, I'm not saying that you should go out and practice all these. You're more than welcome to. I'm just sharing information that I gathered. So we'll start with this first one, and this one was said a couple times by various people. It said, cigar smoke blown into your ear when you have an earache. I like the follow-up comment. It was pipe smoke in my grandparents' house, but sometimes I think my grandpa looked forward to me getting an earache because he could break out the pipe, lol. Multiple people said this about blowing smoke, particularly cigar or pipe in this case, into someone's ear when they have an earache. I also saw someone comment later on that today, if you're not a smoker, you can get the same effect by using a hair blow dryer. So there's one for you. Here's another one. If you have a fever, my mom put onions in our socks. Uh, I'd love to follow up and ask, like, how long did you have to wear them? Or what was the deal? Did you go to bed with them on? Or I hadn't necessarily heard this one before. Someone followed up and said, I've heard it used for seizures as well, onions rubbed on the feet. We do know that onions have a lot of health benefits. I guess putting them in your socks is good for reducing a fever. If you've had experience with that one, please comment in the section below the video here on YouTube to tell us your experience. Do you go to bed with them, or do you just wear them for like 10 minutes or what? I'm really curious about that. But that one made me laugh when I read it. Here's another one that was commonly said throughout the feed. Place a metal spoon under running hot water, then place the bowl of the spoon on a mosquito bite. Instantly destroys the protein that causes the itching. A couple of people had said something along those lines where you heated a knife or a spoon and then put that on a mosquito bite, or if you had a bump on your arm, like let's say you like for swelling. I also saw ones where you ran it under cold water, and then that would help reduce the swelling, which of course makes sense. Next, Well, this is what I was just talking about, actually. So Trish says here, if we fell and got a goonie or a lump on our arm or leg or something, mom would lay a butter knife over it to quote unquote cut the pain. But actually, the knife was cold, and cold alleviates the swelling, so it worked. And there, I think we see this crossover between old belief systems and the actual reason why they worked. Some people truly, hundreds of years ago, before modern medicine, you had these ideas. Oh, put a knife on it; it would cut the pain. And we'll talk a little bit more about powwowing here at the end of this list, which has to do with those types of ideas, of course. But, there was an idea, if the knife was cold, cold does alleviate swelling, so it makes sense. Isn't all this one, I this one makes me laugh too. And I'm not discrediting it. It just makes me laugh because I'm envisioning this when I read it. So you pee on a cut onion, put it in the downspout, let the onion get washed away, and you'll no longer pee in bed. So if you have a young child that has an issue with bedwetting, or if you're an adult and you have an issue with bedwetting, here's something to try. Maybe you don't want to get on the latest prescription pill. Try this one first. An onion is a heck of a lot cheaper, probably, than something that Big Pharma is putting out, that's for sure. And you don't have to worry about your health insurance covering an onion. So try it. Never know. Here's another one. This one was said a lot throughout the feed. If you have a splinter, bacon fat wrapped with a gauze, fat will draw out the splinter. Someone here says, Daniel Seidel says, it did that also. It does work. I read a lot of places where people said, like, if they had a splinter, they would just wrap a piece of bacon around uh, the area instead of putting the fat on a gauze and then on. But I mean, it's the same concept. But that one was mentioned multiple times, so it must work. Got to try it next time you have a splinter. My family's response to me getting a splinter was my father getting out his pocket knife, of course not sanitizing it, and then digging that splinter out. My father was a carpenter, so he experienced a lot of splinters in his lifetime, and I don't think if he was in the middle of a job site or building a kitchen that bacon was always the most readily available to wrap around a finger or a hand if you got a splinter in it. But that's one for you to try. And I think this is our last one before we talk about a couple other things. Larry Christmas says, to draw out a splinter, here's another thing for a splinter. Easter lily flower petals soaked for a few weeks in whiskey. Put a few of them on the splinter or boil it overnight and let it work. It draws, meaning it'll draw the splinter out. Kay Davis agrees. Lily whiskey. My mother-in-law used that for everything. So I had never heard of lily whiskey before. Here we see, I think, also the old Christian ideas coming in as well. Specifically an Easter lily, of course. Easter being with the resurrection of Christ, and the lily being a flower that has had that kind of connotation with it being associated. So there's like the mystical aspect of it, I think, coming into play. But I I wouldn't mind tasting lily whiskey. Actually, to be honest, it might be sweet. I don't know. I have to try that out sometime. There is a lot, and I mean, I can't give you a number, but tons and tons of these ideas that deal with herbs, flowers, plants that the Pennsylvania Dutch belief uh, use these flowers and herbs and plants for multiple things. Of course, most famously in our history, we have Mountain Mary, the healer from the Ole Valley in the 1700s that used her herbs and plants from her gardens to heal people. But I would point your attention to a website called Die Pflanzenheilkunst, and I have the website address up there, www.pflanzenheilkunst.com, and this is a website dedicated to Pennsylvania Dutch herbalism, or as they put here, Pennsylvania German herbal wisdom, and they go through, this is very well maintained. There are tons of flowers and herbs listed on here, and it gives you not only the a description of the flower, and the herb usually provides a picture. For example, here we have the blow bottle or the blue cornflower, and then they go on to usually say like what you can use that flower for. If you notice, there are tons of tabs here at the top of the website that you can check out, and the vast majority of the website is written in English. So even if your Pennsylvania Dutch isn't up to snuff in that sense, you have the English that you can use. You can use, well, of course, that you can read. So I recommend checking them out if you're really interested in learning more about the medicinal powers found in flowers and plants and herbs. The other thing I guess I can't go without mentioning is, of course, we have this tradition in Pennsylvania Dutch called powwowing, and I've done a video before on what powwowing is. There is a relatively new book out by my good friend Patrick Dunmore, who's the director of the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center in Kutztown University. So this book came out last year in 2017, Powwowing in Pennsylvania, and this is, in my opinion, right now, it is the ultimate book when it comes to the history of powwowing, what powwowing is, how it works, why we do it. Um, it goes through remedies, and I know a lot of people in that Facebook conversation had mentioned about, oh, their grandmother did powwowing or prayed or did, used herbs and plants and prayed over somebody when they were sick and it worked. Um, this is still going on. There are still powwowers out there among the Pennsylvania Dutch and among the non-Pennsylvania Dutch too. I think people that just got interested in it and have learned from powwowers. So if you really want to learn a lot more about powwowing, I highly recommend getting this book. If you search it online, you'll find it. It's available through a couple different sites. Masthof Press carries it. It's probably out there on Amazon too. Powwowing in Pennsylvania, Brouwerij, that's the Pennsylvania Dutch word for powwowing, and the Ritual of Everyday Life. It's an excellent book. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you want to learn more about that. So this was an interesting topic. I'm glad that the question was posed, and I'm glad that, and I want to thank everybody on Facebook that responded to my original request. The conversation was really good. There was a lot of back and forth. People would post something that they experienced as a kid or something, and then you had multiple comments about how, oh, the same thing happened to me, or oh no, my family did it this way. It was good conversation. I learned a lot reading all the comments. So thank you for everyone that contributed. So, see, ask a question, you'll get it answered, at least to the best of my ability. So, in the meantime, check out that book, check out that website to learn more. And I'll keep the videos coming. If you have an idea for a future video or a question for a future video, please don't hesitate to contact me. The email address is at the end. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. Tell friends, spread the Pennsylvania Dutch gospel, and keep practicing your Pennsylvania Dutch. Have you spoke Pennsylvania Dutch today yet? If not, here's your opportunity. Go out there and say something. We have enough videos here in this series that you should be able to go out there and say something to somebody, even if they're not listening to you. Maybe sometimes that's the best. All right, till next time, keep the questions coming, and we will be back in your feed here in a week. Until next time, Mox Good.
That's good.